morning, everyone. We're exactly 3 days away from an extreme Republican shutdown. That means 7 million women and children would go without food assistance because of this Republican extremism. 1.3 million service members would be forced to work without pay. 10,000 children would lose access to Head Start. These might just be numbers and statistics for MAGA extremists, but to House Democrats, these are real people's lives. In nearly 10 months of control in the House of Representatives, they have done nothing to lower costs, to improve public safety, or invested a single dollar in border security. And they've voted to roll back hundreds of thousands of good-paying, clean energy jobs. They have no record to speak of because they're too busy fighting amongst themselves or fighting current favor with their favorite former president. The extreme Republican chaos is hurting our economic recovery and making Americans less safe. House Democrats stand ready to work to keep government open, to end the chaos, and to work on the most pressing matters that the American public care about. Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you. Chairman Aguilar detailed the high cost of a government shutdown. It's going to hurt our economy and endanger our national security. And how did we get here? We got here because Speaker Kevin McCarthy went back on his word. He reneged on a deal that he made with President Biden just a few months after he consummated that deal. And this wasn't just a handshake agreement. This was a deal that was put in writing people and literally voted into law. Democrats, Republicans disagree on many issues. We work together on various issues, but in this town, your word still matters. How do we, the American people, trust Kevin McCarthy if he simply goes back on a deal that was put into law? I asked Kevin McCarthy to simply honor the deal that he made that was voted into law and to start taking steps to rebuild his integrity again.
Questions? Nick.
Sir, do you have any response to the calls for Senator Menendez to resign?
I think Senator Menendez, just like every American, is due the opportunity to have a fair trial. He has an incredible track record, over 50 years of service to folks in New Jersey. He has lifted up issues that the Latino community cares about time and time again. It doesn't bring me or any of us joy to say that he should resign. Should. For the betterment of the Democratic Party, for the people of New Jersey, it's better that he fights this trial outside of the halls of Congress. I'd also say that Latinos face barriers and discrimination across the board in so many categories, including in our justice system. This is not that. What we read in the indictment and the charges, we should not conflate the discrimination and the issues and the barriers that Latinos have in the justice system and across industries to what we see there today and the struggles that Latinos face and the barriers that they face in so many ways. But it would be best if he resigned. Next question.
Congressman Gates made another threat on the floor today to Speaker McCarthy and basically said it would be up to Democrats to bail him out. There have been any talk in the Democratic caucus about that?
Well, right now, the talk in the Democratic caucus is we keep government. We realize that extremists like Matt Gaetz have a lot of other ideas on what they want to do, and the revenge tour that they have, fighting for the former president. But right now, our focus is on what's in front of us. He has opportunities. It's not lost on us that is a part of the discussions to become speaker. He lowered the threshold on the motion to vacate. It was one of the concessions that he made. So, Speaker McCarthy did this to himself. But if Matt Gaetz or anyone else brings that, the Democratic caucus will have a conversation and we'll chart a path forward. But right now, that is not our focus. Our focus is keeping government open. Okay. I didn't give Ted an opportunity to answer the Menendez question.
Sure. I agree with the thoughtful comments of Chairman Aguilar.
Oh, wow, I wasn't expecting that. Go ahead.
Congressman Bacon said today that he's been in communication with Democratic leadership with regards to the Problem Solvers Caucus proposal on the government shutdown and avoiding that. He said it would be obviously easier if they had help from either party's leadership to try to bring that to the floor. Is that something Democratic leadership would consider if we do end up at a shutdown or on the precipice of one? Is assisting the Problem Solvers Caucus there?
I'm not aware of any communication other than I know Leader Jeffries spoke to the Problem Solvers Caucus. It was reported, last week. It's incredibly frustrating that so-called moderates time and time again have an inability to stand up to their leadership. They are going down to the floor and they are voting on the most extreme amendments now. And they have paved the way to pass appropriations bills that cut funding for women, infant, and children funding, to cut Head Start funding, to cut Title I education, to cut educators out of our classrooms. That's what they've signed up for. If they are interested in charting a path to avoid a catastrophic shutdown, we're willing to engage in those discussions. But they time and time again have proven that they have an inability to stand up to their leadership. We have been very clear that there are three elements to a CR that are needed. One, FY23 funding levels continue. Two, get rid of the poison pill writers that they are intent on carrying forward to eliminate reproductive freedom and to decimate the freedoms that we hold dear. And third is meeting the needs of the American public when it comes to Ukraine and our national security, as well as disaster assistance. If they're willing to meet those needs, by the way, that has bipartisan support in the Senate, then we're willing to work to make that happen. But they have not yet proven that they are willing to push back on their own leadership.
Is border security a non-starter if it is tied to a CR?
No, in fact, President Biden proposed $4 billion in a supplemental that addressed border security, that put $800 million of additional money into pushing back against fentanyl coming into our country. We absolutely support border security. That's why we want to fund the government. We don't believe furloughing Customs and Border Patrol officers or making them work and not paying them is a good national security strategy. So Democrats stand willing to work on these issues just as we have, in the past. It's unfortunate that the extreme Republican shutdown craze is going to negatively affect it, but it will affect morale. It will affect operations, and it's something we need to make sure doesn't happen.
Just to clarify, HR 2 specifically, since Republicans are in charge of the House, that's the border security bill they want to ride with the CR. Is that a non-starter? Yeah,
that's not a real border security bill. I mean, it's Republican fantasy land. It has no path to passing in the Senate. Senators have said that. It had 0 votes from House Democrats. Right now, the only way this works, the only way we avoid a shutdown is through a bipartisan measure. Speaker McCarthy knows it. Our senators know it. And it's unfortunate that he has chosen to isolate himself and put himself on an island when House Democrats, Senate Democrats, Senate Republicans, and President Biden all want to avoid a shutdown. They seem intent on supporting one. And so that bill has no path to having bipartisan support. So that's why it does not appear that it will be included in any type of effort, but we stand willing to work on border security measures as we have.
Sure. It's even actually worse than that in terms of what Republicans are doing. If you look at their proposed appropriations bill for Homeland Security, it's going to hurt border security. And this CR that the Senate is working on, it went through initial vote that had 77 senators vote for it. That's a very large bipartisan vote. We expect to come out of the Senate with a large bipartisan vote. That really is the only path forward. And again, we're just asking Speaker McCarthy to honor his word to the American people.
It's important to know, we'll see if this CR, the Republican House Senate CR comes on the floor, but that based on the funding levels that they've indicated, it would get rid of 2,000 Customs and Border Patrol officers and agents, which would have a negative effect, and it's something that they should be asked in the back.
Congressman, thank you. The Farm Bill expires in 3 days, and a lot of the larger programs start to expire at the end of the year. With all of the delays in the House and kind of all the chaos on the floor, is it possible to pass a Farm Bill or an extension before the year is over?
We hold out hope. Just like important measures like the FAA. I know the FAA reauthorization is included in this CR. We hold out hope. The Farm Bill has been a bipartisan measure in the past. We look forward to leadership on both sides working on those issues. It's been a little delayed with this Republican chaos that we're seeing. I think that's kind of taken some calendar days away from opportunities to work on a bipartisan farm bill, but we stand ready to work with our colleagues on a farm bill that is strong, that lifts up America's farmers, that provides the resources necessary to support supplemental nutrition and feeding kids. Those are the things that are important to Democrats and Republicans, and we hope that those priorities are carried forward in the farm bill before the end of the year.
Thank you. Senate leaders yesterday unveiled a continuing resolution, keep the government funded until November 17th. The Senate advanced on a bipartisan basis. This morning, Speaker McCarthy said he doesn't see support for it in the House. A, curious your thoughts on the Senate CR, and B, do you think it would be a mistake if McCarthy did not bring that to the floor?
No, I think it'd be a huge mistake. I think it would mean that we have Republican led shutdown. I think that's what it leads to. If Kevin McCarthy doesn't feel it has the votes, let's be very specific. He doesn't feel it has, 218 Republicans. That's all he ever cares about. He should put it on the floor. If he doesn't think it has the votes, he should put it on the floor. But my guess, I would defer to Whip Catherine Clark, but I'm guessing north of 315 votes that measure would have to avoid a shutdown. Maybe a little higher than that. But that bill, that CR would have the votes on the floor. It just doesn't have the votes of the MAGA extremists who gave McCarthy his job. And so that's what he has trouble understanding.
When it comes to the cuts that are being proposed, this is for pretty much just 1 month. How would that impact us? Why is that such a problem that we see these cuts just for 1 month?
Yeah, I mean, this is just a painful reminder of what the Republican-led chaos would mean. They want these cuts to send a point. It's never about people. It's always about cuts and harm. That's what they want to do. They want to send a message to the American public. Unfortunately, the message that they want to send generally means fewer services, longer delays, fewer Social Security folks working to help people navigate their issues. And so, over 20%, cuts to some of these, vital programs, they do it just to make a point. Cutting education dollars, means Title I teachers out of the classrooms. That's harmful in communities from California, where the vice chair and I live. That's thousands of teachers. Those are harmful effects to this shutdown. They are not talking about, 12 months of cuts. They want to make a point with 6 weeks in cuts to pave the way to have these broader conversations, all with the background, by the way, that, what the vice chair said. Kevin McCarthy cut a deal. He may not like the deal today, but he made pains to negotiate that deal himself with President Biden. And so we believe that those are the numbers that should become law. By the way, that's what the Senate believes as well. And unfortunately, the extremists won't let the speaker abide by the deal that he made. Connie?
I think now the strategy about Republicans working with Democrats on defeating a previous question to get a CR across. Can you talk about how likely something like that is versus a discharge petition versus sure.
I mean, it's the same answer, that I gave to the Don Bacon conversation. The procedure, doesn't matter. There are various legislative avenues that are available. What we lack aren't legislative opportunities. What we lack is the will of a handful of so-called Republican moderates to do what is in the best interest of the American public, to keep government open, to fund government, to invest resources into protecting the freedom for the Ukrainian people, to replenish the disaster relief fund that is providing critical support to people in Hawaii and Florida and Vermont. We lack the will of so-called moderates. So we don't lack legislative options. But if they
Leaning towards any.
no, honestly, it doesn't matter because they would all have the same effect. If we had individuals who were willing to stand up to Republican leadership and help us avoid a shutdown. Last question, Lisa. I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, Lisa. Did you want to?
Sure. Let me just make this clear again. Who is honoring this deal between Speaker McCarthy and Joe Biden that was voted into law? Well, Senate Republicans are, as are Senate Democrats and House Democrats, and the overwhelming majority of the House Republican caucus. The only people not honoring this deal are a handful of extreme right-wing MAGA Republicans that's going to send our country into a totally unnecessary government shutdown. And we're just asking Kevin McCarthy to stand up, rebuild his integrity, and honor his word.
Lisa, last question.
Things can change fast around here, but at this point, it feels like it would take a legislative and political miracle to avoid a shutdown. What we hear from especially House Republicans. My question to you is: this happens a lot in these shutdowns, but we're going to start hearing debates over who should get paid and how. Do you believe active duty military should be paid during the shutdown? Do you believe lawmakers should be paid? And do you believe House staff members should be paid?
Well, I think we should focus all of our efforts to avoiding a shutdown. Full stop. That is what we are focused on. But as we get closer to a Republican-led shutdown, we're going to have to answer those questions. The House majority, so Republicans in the House through the House Administration Committee, will issue guidance to employees and to members. They may do that today, they may do that tomorrow, but sometime in the near future that will come. As soon as we have that guidance, I think we'll all be free to give you our opinions on this. My preference, there was the Pay Our Military Act that has been passed, that was passed into law in the 2013 shutdown. We only had a partial shutdown in 1819, as you recall. But my preference would be that we don't lapse funding, or that we don't miss paychecks to people providing essential services. But we'll see where Republican guidance is. We've passed appropriations bills into law, and so that could lead to consequences, because Kevin McCarthy has an inability to stand by his deal and to fund government. Thank you so much.
Thank you.